Hi guys, today we're looking at the Omega Seamaster Professional, model number 225450. Just to go over the specs quickly, you can see it's a black dial, stainless steel case, and case back, stainless steel bracelet. It's a 42mm case width with 20mm lugs. It has a helium escape valve, unidirectional rotating bezel. It has a nice clasp with a diver's extension. So now this watch, it has a movement that's based on the ETA 2892 movement, which as far as ETA movements go, they have the 2824 movement is their kind of workhorse movement, and the 2892, which is in this watch, is a more complicated movement. I don't want to necessarily say better because it depends on how you define better, but the 2892 that's in here is, maybe you can say a finer made, well, not made, but just a finer movement. I don't know, that might be a little controversial description, but I'll stick with it. So now once Omega gets this ETA movement, they do some modifications to it and they decorate it. So what's in here is not the stock movement, but it's been modified a bit by Omega. Now this watch is a diver's watch, but for a diver's watch the case is pretty thin. We have a domed sapphire crystal here. Now I'll show you the bezel. This only rotates in one direction. I can only turn it this way. It won't turn that way. And that's because if you're diving and you set your time, you don't want to be able to hit your watch on something and, here, I'll give you an example. If, let's say I set it here, and now I see that how much time has elapsed. If I was able to turn the bezel this way, clockwise, I'd be able to give myself more time on the dive, and if you do that, you can end up running out of air if you're using this watch. So that's why on divers' watches the bezel only turns in one direction. So you can only give yourself less time, which will not put you in any danger while you're diving. Now this watch, I'll just put this back to the 12 o'clock. Looking at the dial here, it has, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but you can look up pictures if you want to see the dial closer. It has a wave pattern, so this is not just a flat black dial. It's all in a wave up and down pattern. Now this has sword-shaped hands, except for the seconds hand, which maybe you can see there's a little round circle on the straight stick. It's called a lollipop hand because it kind of looks like a lollipop, and there's a red tip on the seconds hand. Now the hour markers are pretty large and they're covered in lume, and this watch it's known for its lume. It gets very bright and the lume lasts for a very long time, and it's a green colored lume. And on some of the newer Omegas, I know they've switched to more of a white, bluish colored lume, but this is green. Now, the bracelet on here, let's talk about this. This is a Speedmaster style bracelet. It kind of has it's only 3 pieces, but it kind of looks like 5 because on the outside of this center link, you have 2 polished little slivers before it goes back to the brushed end links. And I actually have my Speedmaster here so I can show you how these bracelets really look the same. The only real difference between them is the clasp. On the Seamaster here, you have the diver's clasp. And you can see how it's pretty flush with the bracelet. But now when I look at my Speedmaster, see how it's not. You can see here the part of the clasp hanging down, and it's also over here on the back, it's not flush with the bracelet, so you can see the difference in there. So let's look at the clasp here. It's a really nice solid clasp, and it has a diver's extension. If it's back here, all you have to do is kind of pull this apart and it opens up to give you this little extension here. And this is for fitting the watch over a wetsuit, because once you size this to your wrist, you're not going to be able to get around the outside of your wetsuit, so you can pop this open, and now you'll have an extra inch and a half or so to get this over a wetsuit if you decide to leave it on the metal bracelet while you go diving. Now it is rated for 300 meters of depth, so this is definitely a dive watch. And it has a helium escape valve, which it's a diving feature, though it's one that you'll probably never use. It's used for something that I believe is called saturation diving, where in that situation helium can build up under the crystal, and if you don't let that helium escape somehow, the crystal can come flying off the watch. That's probably never going to be a worry for any of you, but they like to, companies like Omega, put a helium escape valve on their watch just to make it more of a technical, robust dive watch. It's really as much as a marketing gimmick as anything for 99.9% of the population of divers, really. So this is a 120 click bezel. It will go around 120 times. And the bezel is not the easiest bezel to grip. It's just a scalloped edge instead of something like a coin edge. So if you had gloves on while you're diving, or maybe gloves while you're you're outside in the winter, it could be a little hard to turn this dial. You really kind of have to just push down to create some friction with your fingers and turn it around. So I think it looks nice, but it's not the easiest to work. Now let's see, what else can we talk about here? We can look at the case back. This is a pretty simple case back. Nothing too fancy. And then in the center here, you see the hippocampus, which is kind of Omega Seamaster logo. So that pretty much covers all the features of this watch. Now the last thing I should talk about is that this is a discontinued model. So Omega is not producing any more Seamasters that look like this. Now they're called the Bond Seamaster because they were worn in the James Bond films. And those they used to only come in a blue face with a blue bezel, but now they come in a black face with a black bezel. They look a little bit different. Their hour markers are different than this, and they have a different bracelet. So this configuration of the Seamaster is not being produced anymore. You may still be able to find it in stores if your dealer has some leftover stock. So this watch is kind of really beloved by a lot of Omega enthusiasts, and a lot think that this will become a classic eventually. You never know about those things, whether or not this becomes a classic. You can't say now. But this is a great dive watch. It's the Omega Seamaster Professional, 300 meters. Thanks for watching my video, guys, and if you want to see more watch reviews, take a look at my channel.